To this the Archon spoke at the institution after this manner: My lords, it is affirmed by Cicero in his oration for Flaccus that the commonwealths of Greece were all shaken or ruined by the intemperance of their comitia, or assemblies of the people. The truth is, if good heed in this point be not taken, a commonwealth will have bad legs. But all the world knows he should have accepted Lacedaemon, where the people, as hath been shown by the oracle, had no power at all of debate, nor till after Lysander, whose avarice opened a gulf that was not long ere it swallowed up his country, came it ever to be exercised by them. Whence the commonwealth stood longest and firmest of any other but this. In our days, of Venice, which having underlaid herself with the like institution, owes a great, if not the greatest part of her steadiness unto the same principle. The great council, which is with her the people, by the authority of my lord Epimonus, never speaking a word. Nor shall any commonwealth, where the people in their political capacity is talkative, ever see half the days of one of these, but being carried away by vainglorious men, that, as Overbury says, piss more than they drink, swim down the sink, as did Athens, the most prating of these dames, when that same ranting fellow Alcibiades fell on demagoguing for the Sicilian war. But whereas debate, by the authority and experience of Lacedaemon and Venice, is not to be committed unto the people in a well-ordered government, it may be said that the order specified is but a slight bar in a matter of like danger. For so much as an oath, if there be no recourse upon the breach of it, is a weak tie for such hands as have the sword in them. Wherefore, what should hinder the people of Oceana, if they happen not to regard an oath from assuming debate, and making themselves as much an anarchy as those of Athens? To which I answer, take the common sort in a private capacity, and except they be injured, you shall find them to have verecundiam patrum, a bashfulness in the presence of the better sort or wiser men, acknowledging their abilities by attention, and accounting it no mean honor to receive respect from them. But if they be injured by them, they hate them, and the more for being wise or great, because that makes it the greater injury. Nor refrain they, in this case, from any kind of intemperance of speech, if of action. It is no otherwise with a people in their political capacity. You shall never find that they have assumed debate for itself, but for something else. Wherefore, in Lacedaemon where there was, and in Venice where there is, nothing else for which they should assume it, they have never shown so much as an inclination to it. Nor was there any appearance of such a desire in the people of Rome, who from the time of Romulus had been very well contented with the power of result, either comitiis cucuriatis, as it was settled upon them by him, or centuriatis, as it was altered in their regard by the worse, for the worse, by Servius Tullius, till news was brought some 15 years after the exile of Tarquin, their late king, during which time the Senate had governed passing well, that he was dead at the court of Aristodemus, the tyrant of Cumae. Eo nuntio erecti patres, erecta plebs, sed patribus nimis luxuriosa ea fuit letitia plebi, qui ad eam diam summa ope in servitum erat, injuriae a primoribus fieri cepere. Whereupon the patricians or nobility began to let out the hitherto dissembled venom which is inherent in the root of oligarchy, and fell immediately upon injuring the people beyond all moderation. For whereas the people had served both gallantly and contentedly in arms upon their own charges, and though joint purchasers by their swords of the conquered lands, had not participated in the same to above 2 acres a man, the rest being secretly usurped by the patricians. They, through the meanness of their support and the greatness of their expense, being generally indebted, no sooner returned home with victory to lay down their arms than they were snatched up by their creditors, the nobility, to cram gaols. Whereupon, but with the greatest modesty that was ever known in the like case, they first fell upon debate. Se foris pro libertate et imperio dimicantes, domi a tivibus captos et oppressos esse. Tutioremque in bello cam in pace inter hostis, cam in cives libertatem plebis esse. It is true that when they could not get the Senate, through fear, as was pretended by the patricians, to assemble and take their grievances into consideration, they grew so much warmer that it was glad to meet, where Appius Claudius, a fierce spirit, was of opinion that recourse should be had unto consular power, whereby some of the brands of sedition being taken off, the flame might be extinguished. Servilius, being of another temper, thought it better and safer to try if the people might be bowed than broken. But this debate was intercepted by tumultuous news of the near approach of the Volsci, a case in which the Senate had no recourse but to the people, who, contrary unto their former custom upon like occasions, would not stir a foot, but fell on laughing and saying, Patres militarent, patres amar caparent, ut penes eos dem pericula belli, penes quas premia essent. Let them fight that have something to fight for. The Senate that had purses, and could not sing so well before the thief, being in great perplexity, found no possible way out of it but to beseech Servilius, one of a genius well known to be popular, that he would accept of the consulship, and make some such use of it as might be helpful to the patrician interest. Servilius, accepting of the offer, and making use of his interest with the people, persuaded them to hope well of the good intention of the fathers, whom it would little beseem to be forced unto those things which would lose their grace, and that in view of the enemy, if they came not freely, and withal published an edict that no man should withhold a citizen of Rome by imprisonment for giving his name, for that was the way, as I shall have opportunity hereafter to show more at large, whereby they drew out their armies, nor seize it, nor sell any man's goods or children, course immediately took arms. Whereupon the people, with the mighty concourse, immediately took arms, marched forth, and which in them was as easy as to be put into the humor, and that, as appears in this place, was not hard, totally defeated the Volsci first, then the Sabines, for the neighbor nations, hoping to have had a good bargain of the discord in Rome, were up on all sides, and after the Sabines, the Aurunci. Whence, returning victorious in their battles, they expected no less than the Senate would have made good their words, when Appius Claudius, the other consul, of his innate pride, and that he might frustrate the faith of his colleague, caused the soldiers, who being set at liberty, had behaved themselves with such valor, to be restored at their return unto their creditors and their gaols. great resort upon this was made by the people unto Servilius, showing him their wounds, calling him to witness how they had behaved themselves, and minding him of his promise. Poor Servilius was sorry, but so overawed with the headiness of his colleague and the obstinacy of the whole faction of the nobility, that, not daring to do anything either way, he lost both parties, the fathers conceiving that he was ambitious, and the people that he was false, while the consul Claudius, continuing to countenance such as daily seized and imprisoned some of the indebted people, had still new and dangerous controversies with them, insomuch that the commonwealth was torn with horrid division, and the people, because they found it not so safe or so effectual in public, minded nothing but laying their heads together in private conventicles. For this Virginius and Titus Vetusius, the new consuls, were reproved by the Senate as slothful, and upbraided with the virtue of Appius Claudius. Whereupon the consuls, having desired the Senate that they might know their pleasure, showed afterwards their readiness to obey it, by summoning the people according unto command, and requiring names whereby to draw forth an army for diversion. But no man would answer. Report hereof being made unto the Senate, the younger sort of the fathers grew so hot with the consuls that they desired them to abdicate the magistracy, which they had not the courage to defend. The consuls, though they conceived themselves to be roughly handled, made this soft answer: Fathers conscript, that you may please to take notice, it was foretold some horrid sedition is at hand. We shall only desire that they whose valor in this place is so great may stand by us to see how we behave ourselves, and then be as resolute in your commands as you will. Your fatherhoods may know if we be wanting in this performance. At this, some of the hot bloods returned with the consuls unto the tribunal, before which the people were yet standing, and the consuls, having generally required names in vain to put it into something, required the name of one that was in their eye particularly, on whom, when he moved not, they commanded a lictor to lay hands. But the people, thronging about the party summoned, forbade the lictor, who durst not touch him, at which the Hotspurs that came with the consuls, enraged by the affront, descended from the throne to the aid of the lictor, from whom, in so doing, they turned the indignation of the people upon themselves with such heat that the consuls, interposing, thought fit by remitting the assembly to appease the tumult, in which, nevertheless, there had been nothing but noise. Nor was there less in the Senate, being suddenly rallied upon this occasion. There they that received the repulse, with others whose heads were as addled as their own, fell upon the business as if it had been to be determined by clamor, till the consuls, upbraiding the Senate that it differed not from the marketplace, reduced the house unto orders, and the fathers having been consulted accordingly, there were three opinions. P. Virginius conceived that the consideration to be had upon the matter in question, or aid of the indebted and imprisoned people, was not to be farther extended than unto such as had engaged upon the promise made by Servilius. T. Largius, that it was no time to think it enough if men's merits were acknowledged, while the whole people, sunk under the weight of their debts, could not emerge without some common aid, which to restrain by putting some into a better condition than others would rather more inflame the discord than extinguish it. Appius Claudius, still upon the old haunt, would have it that the people were rather wanton than fierce. It was not oppression that necessitated, but their power that invited them unto these freaks, the empire of the consuls, since the appeal unto the people, whereby a plebeian might ask his fellows if he were a thief, being but a mere scarecrow, "Go to," says he, Let us create the dictator, from whom there is no appeal, and then let me see more of this work, or him that shall forbid my lictor. The advice of Apius was abhorred by many, and to introduce a general rescission of debts with Largius was to violate all faith. That of Virginius, as the most moderate, would have passed best, but there were private interests, that same bane of the public, which withstood it. So they concluded with Apius, who also had been dictator. If the consuls and some of the graver sort had not thought it altogether unreasonable at a time when the Volsci and the Sabines were up again, to venture so far upon alienation of the people, for which cause Valerius, being descended from the Publicolas, the most popular family, as also in his own person of a mild nature, was rather trusted with so rigid a magistracy. Whence it happened that the people, though they knew well enough against whom the dictator was created, feared nothing from Valerius, but upon a new promise made the same effect with that of Servilius, hoped better another time, and throwing away all disputes, gave their names roundly, went out, and, to be brief, came home again as victorious as in the former action, the dictator entering the city in triumph. Nevertheless, when he came to press the Senate to make good his promise and do something for the ease of the people, they regarded him no more as to that point than they had done Servilius, whereupon the dictator, in disdain to be made a stale, abdicated his magistracy and went home. Here then was a victorious army without a captain, and a senate pulling it by the beard in their gowns. What is it, if you have read the story, for there is not such another, that must follow? Can any man imagine that such only should be the opportunity upon which this people could run away? Alas, poor men, the Achaei and the Volsci and the Sabines were nothing but the fathers invincible. There they sat, some 300 of them, armed all in robes and thundering with their tongues, no hopes in the earth to reduce them unto any tolerable conditions. Wherefore, not thinking to abide long so near them, away marches the army, and encamps in the fields. This retreat of the people is called the secession of Mount Aventine, where they lodged, very sad at their condition, but not letting fall so much as a word of murmur against the fathers. The Senate by this time were great lords, had the whole city unto themselves, but certain neighbors were upon the way that might come to speak with them, not asking leave of the porter. Wherefore their minds became troubled, and an orator was posted unto the people to make as good conditions with them as he could, but, whatever the terms were, to bring them home, and with all speed. And here it was covenanted between the Senate and the people that these should have the magistrates of their own election, called the tribunes, upon which they returned. To hold you no longer, the Senate, having done this upon necessity, made frequent attempts to retract it again, while the tribunes, on the other side, to defend what they had gotten, instituted their tributa comitia, or council of the people, where they came in time, and as disputes increased, to make laws without the authority of the Senate, called plebiscita. Now, to conclude, in the point at which I drive, such were the steps whereby the people of Rome came to assume debate. Nor is it in art or nature to debar a people of the like effect, where there is the like cause. For Romulus, having in the election of his Senate squared out of a nobility for the support of a throne, by making that of the patrician a distinct and hereditary order, planted the commonwealth upon two contrary interests or roots, which shooting forth in time produced two commonwealths, the one oligarchical in the nobility, and the other a mere anarchy of the people, which thenceforth caused a perpetual feud and enmity between the Senate and the people, even to death. There is not more noble or useful question in the politics than that which is started by Machiavel, whether means were to be found whereby the enmity that was between the Senate and the people of Rome might have been removed. Nor is there any other in which we, or the present occasion, forasmuch as his judgment in the determination of the question standing, our commonwealth faileth. And he that will erect a commonwealth against the judgment of Machiavel is obliged to give such reasons for his enterprise as must not go on begging. Wherefore, to repeat the politician very honestly, but somewhat more briefly, he disputes thus.